So once we've determined that a person either has too much weight on their body or not enough weight on their body, and we've decided, okay, now we want to either gain weight or lose weight, what do we do? How do we do it? So weight gain and weight loss can be very difficult, but the answer to how it's done is quite simple. That doesn't mean that it's easy to do. It just means that it's simple math. So whether a person gains weight or whether they lose weight depends on the balance, the energy balance between the energy intake and energy expenditure. So when you consume more calories than you burn, you gain weight. When you consume less calories than you burn, you lose weight. This is called energy balance. So when you're maintaining weight, you are in energy balance. When you're not gaining or losing weight over time, that's called energy balance. When you are in negative energy balance, that means that you're losing weight or you've experienced weight loss. When you're in positive energy balance, that means you're gaining weight. You may have heard that a pound of body weight is 3,500 calories. And this is true, except that it's not exactly true. There is some scientific wiggle room there that your book discusses. But if you're trying to figure out how many calories you need to eat to lose weight or to gain weight, this is still a very useful tool. So we'll just assume that a pound of body weight is worth 3,500 calories. And if you eat 3,500 calories more than you burn over time, that results in a gain of 1 pound. If you're not exercising, this gain will probably be fat. So here's the theory. Say you shave off about 250 calories a day. That, in theory, will result in a half-pound weight loss in a week because the math is right there. 250 times 7 days, that is a half a pound. If you eat or drink an extra 250 calories a day, you'll gain about a half a pound a week. Now, why am I saying 250 calories? We can't gain or lose weight in large amount in just one day. It has to be done slowly because we need to eat a certain amount to maintain body functions and to maintain the muscle mass that we have. And it's just not possible to burn off a ton of fat very quickly or gain a lot of muscle very quickly. It actually takes time to do this right. And so that's why we aim for slow and steady weight loss or slow and steady weight gain, which is usually about a half a pound a week. So manipulating what you eat is one thing that you can do. Eat less and you're aiming for weight loss, eat more and you're aiming for weight gain. But the other thing that you can look at manipulating is your energy expenditure. So your total energy expenditure, this is how many calories you burn in a day, it's made up of 3 things. Your BMR, that's your basal metabolic rate, and so that is just the calories it takes to keep you breathing, to keep your heart beating, and to keep you kind of moving around in your daily life. And then there's the thermic effect of food. So you actually burn calories when you eat and digest food. Then you have your activity energy expenditure. And this is actually the part that you have the most control over. This is your physical activity that you do on purpose. And so this is where we really have a tremendous amount of control over how many calories we burn in a day. Okay, so we throw around the term metabolism a lot, but what is metabolism? So your metabolism is, in scientific terms, is your BMR or your RMR. And this term, you can use these pretty much interchangeably. There is subtle difference between them. BMR is measured in a lab after you have woken up from a good night of sleep. So this is a study subject that's actually getting his BMR measured. It's the amount of calories to keep you alive. And so he's burning calories just laying there. He's warming his body, his organs are working, and that burns calories. And then your RMR is measured a little bit differently. It's a little bit of a higher measurement because you didn't get enough rest, and then you can actually be sitting up in a chair when you're getting it measured. All of that to say, BMR and RMR are basically the same thing. They're your metabolism, the calories that you burn just to keep your body moving and alive. So most people would like to have a higher metabolism because with a higher metabolism, you can eat more without gaining weight. There are some people who consider themselves having too high of a metabolism, and sometimes these are young men in particular. They tend to have a very high metabolism so that they can't gain weight. But let's talk about what makes your metabolism higher or what makes it lower. The number one thing that you can do and the number one thing that contributes to having a higher BMR is more muscle mass. So the more muscle you have on your body, the more calories you burn just being alive. Somebody who's male, somebody who is younger, somebody who is growing will have a higher BMR. That's not something you can do anything about. Sometimes there are thyroid conditions that lead to a higher BMR. If you're going through physical trauma or like something like a burn or a fever, you actually have a higher metabolism during that time. If your body temperature runs higher, now this is not something you can manipulate, but there are some people who have a higher body temperature just genetically, and there's some research that shows that they have an easier time maintaining a healthier body weight because they have a higher BMR. There is something called brown fat that is also something that we don't really have a lot of control over. Some people genetically seem to have a little bit more brown fat, which burns calories just sitting there, whereas most adipose tissue burns no calories at all. We lower our BMR then when we lose muscle mass. And so this is one of the problems of dieting, especially fast dieting. When we lose a lot of weight really fast, we lose muscle mass. There's no way around it. And so you end up with a lower metabolism because you lost muscle mass. And then you gain the weight back, but when you gain the weight back, you don't gain the muscle mass, or at least not all of it. So you end up with a lower metabolism than you had before at the higher weight. And so it gets harder and harder to keep that weight off. BMR goes lower as we age. We don't know if this is due to the natural loss of muscle mass. We do tend to lose muscle mass as we age. Or if it's also a combination of just simply aging. It's probably both, but one of the things we can do as we get older is to constantly do strength training activities. If you are eating very low calorie diets or starving over time, then your metabolism will go lower just to protect itself. And then if your body temperature runs lower, you tend to burn less calories. So also included in your metabolism is the thermic effect of food. This is about 5 to 10% of the energy content of a meal. There's really not a lot you can do about this. Some people try to manipulate it by saying you should eat certain foods that burn more calories, but really you should just leave it alone and try to eat a healthy diet. And then, as I mentioned, the category you have the most control over is that exercise, physical activity category. This varies a lot per person. But it accounts for your planned activity as well as things that you do that burn calories. So anything that you do that's non-exercise but not just sitting there. Another word for that non-exercise category is called NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. And this is actually kind of a fascinating area of research because they have shown that some people naturally burn more calories because they just are fidgeters. They just don't sit still. And so you probably know somebody like this that just can't sit still. They're gardening or they're walking around and they're cleaning, and when they're sitting there, they're probably fidgeting and always moving their knee and things like that. So all of these things add up to calories that are burned. And it probably is a reason that some people tend to not have a weight problem, even though it looks like they're eating the same thing as somebody right next to them that does have a weight problem. It's this non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So a lot of the things that we do standing up, washing dishes, vacuuming, climbing stairs, they can add up to a lot. So when we add these things in specifically to our life, instead of taking the elevator, taking the stairs, for example, working at a standing desk instead of a sitting desk, these things can and do add up to a healthier weight.